Who are the pediatric cardiology postgraduates? Mustaf sir, Palak, Kalyan, Pavan.
Not logged in yet.
Anybody from Narayana Hrudayalaya? Anybody from Rabindranath Tagore? Anybody from Escorts in New Delhi? Our guys also not there. Palak Kalyan are not there.
Good morning, sir. I'm there.
But okay, good evening. So
Good evening. Sorry.
Good evening, Indian and England. Good morning. You are in UK, I know. Okay, let us take the case then, Palak.
Yes,
I don't know whether you know the case or not. I think it is sometime back from archives. You can go ahead and discuss.
Yes, sir.
And let me
So
give another 10 seconds to anybody would like to take the case. Anybody would like to take other than Palak? Where is that Star Hospital postgraduates? What's his name?
Murtaza, sir.
Murtaza is there. Murtaza is not there. Can you identify any of the pediatric cardiology postgraduates in this forum?
Sir Sandeep Arun.
Sandeep is, where is Sandeep coming from?
Sandeep is from Triple M, sir.
Sandeep or Arun? Nobody is there. Okay, Palak, 10 seconds over. You please start.
Okay, sir. So this is a fetal echocardiogram of a 24-year-old primary gravida with twin gestation showed critical AS with impending HLHS in one fetus. There is normal heart in the other twin. Then this is fetal critical AS with impending HLHS. So this is a fetal echocardiogram which is showing apical 4-chamber view. If we see here, then this is the left atrium. The left.
Sorry, Palak, you cannot tell apical 4-chamber. It is a mid transthoracic 4-chamber view.
Okay, sir.
When you are talking fetal echo, postnatally you can tell apical 4-chamber.
Okay, sir.
It is a mid transthoracic 4-chamber view. Okay.
So it is a mid transthoracic 4-chamber view. If we see here, there is the pulmonary veins appear to enter this atrium. So this appears to be the left atrium. Also, the descending thoracic aorta is right behind this one. So this atrium is the left atrium. If we see the ventricle which is attached to this atrium is dilated and it also appears to be dysfunctional. And if we see, there is hyperintensity in the ventricular wall which is seen. On the other hand, the other ventricle, it looks like the right atrium, and this ventricle has a morphology like that of the right ventricle. If we see, there is minimal pericardial effusion also, which can be seen in this view. Then here in this, the whole video, it shows 4-chamber view, and in the end, we can see that the a small aortic valve can be seen, like the LV outflow is opening.
The important fundamental point here is the left atrium is dilated and interatrial septum appears intact. I don't see any phenomena where interatrial septum is bulging towards the right atrium. In a normal setting, it should bulge towards the left atrium. So
Yes,
that is important point. And what you are seeing is the tiny antegrade flow across the
antegrade
aorta.
flow across the aorta.
So what is this?
Sir, this is a Doppler, which is this is a pulse wave Doppler across the mitral valve, and it shows E and A velocities. So normally in the fetus, if it's normal, then A is more as compared to E. But in this case, if we see, then the E waves are very, very tall as compared to the A wave, which is suggestive of diastolic dysfunction of the left ventricle.
Restrictive physiology.
Restrictive physiology during fetal life.
So that is a tricuspid valve. That's a normal.
That's
okay.
Normal. Yes.
Okay.
1 minute, Palak. What is that hyperintensity of the LV called? You said no.
Sir, endomyocardial fibroelastosis.
Endocardial fibrillation.
Endocardial fibrillation.
What is the ventricular function here? Left ventricular
So
function.
it is decreased.
Okay, fine.
Ventricular dysfunction is there.
So now what is happening here?
So fetal PBAV. So here, sir, we are doing fetal PBAV is being done. by using 18G Chiba needle. So if we see here, this is the needle which is coming from the abdomen, and we are piercing the baby's
Left
abdomen,
brain.
I think.
So it was done using 4 into 15 balloon,
4
and you
into
can see the interatrial septum which is appearing intact. And I don't see. Yeah, I am not showing any other videos here. It is only you can see here. Oh, okay. There's a video. There's a wire across the aortic wall. Can you see a wire across the aortic
Yes, sir.
wall?
Yes, sir.
And this is the balloon which is
Balloon which
across
is
the
being
aortic wall. So fetal PBAV done. And what is this?
So, post procedure, this is a pulse wave Doppler which has been taken across the aortic valve. So, sir, if we see, there is stenosis, but there is aortic regurgitation also. So, the above the line, the tracing that we are getting is because of
Okay.
the aortic regurgitation.
So there is aortic regurgitation. What is this then?
So here the LV function has improved. The restrictive physiology, the E wave earlier was very tall as compared to A, but
Okay.
now it is almost of like.
Okay,
it has
so
come
this
down.
is the balloon dilation and not balloon dilatation. Post procedure in utero, there is a good antegrade flow here. The intraatrial communication is not there. You can see the pulmonary venous flow. This is the pulmonary venous Doppler. Can you read this Doppler?
Sir, there is here if we see there is prominent A reversal which is seen. Normally the pulmonary vein Doppler will have SD and A reversal. So here,
A reversal in a fetus is very, very tiny, insignificant, and not seen most of the cases. But here, which is
very prominent.
significant. So now
Yes.
you see what is this?
So this is S, this is D, and this is A reversal.
So when do you call diastolic dysfunction? Read.
So when,
I am
okay.
giving you all slides.
Okay, sir. So A wave duration greater than 77 milliseconds, S by D greater than 2.5, A by D ratio greater if it's 1.35.
So there is a diastolic dysfunction here, very obvious. That is due to restrictive foramina ovale. Okay.
Yes.
Now
Yes.
see that antegrade flow here.
Yes.
Arch flow is good, but however continues to have EFE, ventricular dysfunction, and intraatrial communication is not there. So baby is delivered now. This is the postnatal. Postnatal. Read postnatal echo.
So postnatal echo. Again, this is an apical 4-chamber view, sir, which is showing in this. If we see, then the LV is dilated, LLV is dilated, and LV is also dysfunctional. LV dysfunction is there, and foramen ovale is not
Yeah.
seen. So on the right hand side, it is a subcostal short axis view, which is showing SVC, and it is almost showing an intact
So
interradial.
this baby is taken for the procedure again because there is aortic stenosis.
Okay, sir.
So this is the phenomena. You please tell what it is.
Okay,
Read
sir.
that.
So the hemodynamics during PBAV, before PBAV, the LV pressure systolic was 95 and EDP is 30, which is very high. Then FA systolic is 65 and diastolic pressure is 35. And there's a gradient of 30 with the severe LV
So
dysfunction.
do you think that gradient is significant?
No, sir, because there's severe LV dysfunction. So in that case, we cannot properly estimate the gradient across
The
the
gradient is significant in the presence of ventricular dysfunction.
dysfunction. Then
Okay.
after the procedure, the LV systolic pressure is 95 and diastolic pressure is 20. FA systolic pressure is 73 and diastolic pressure is 40 and the gradient is around 22.
So pulmonary artery pressures I have not mentioned there. The pulmonary artery pressures are 96 over 44. 96 over 44 with mean of 67. You write down that. So you have a systolic pressure of LV pressure of 95,
Yes.
PA pressure of 96/44, whereas FA pressure is 73.
Yes, sir.
So which is feeding the systemic circulation now in the presence of a ductus arteriosus?
So I think the pulmonary artery is feeding
Okay.
circulation.
So this is the echocardiogram. You give comment. Angiocardiogram. You give comment on both the things. Maybe you can give lateral view, LAO view. You can tell.
Okay, sir. So this is a angiogram which is done in steep LAO view, sir. LAO 50, cranial 20, with the end hole catheter, sir. If we see here, there is a ECG lead which can be seen. The course of the catheter is from the femoral artery
No,
into
you
the
read the angiogram in LAO view.
yes, sir, LAO view.
Yeah.
Okay. LAO view only, sir. The course of the catheter is from the
Femoral artery to ascending aorta to left ventricle is the course of the catheter,
Yes.
end hole catheter. You read the angiogram.
Okay, sir. Sir, this is showing opacification of a smoothly trabeculated ventricle, most likely of LV morphology, sir. If we see, then there is thickening of this ventricle. We can see two shadows here in the wall, which is suggestive of endocardial fibroelastosis. Also, LV dysfunction is there. Apart from that, sir, there is a contrast which is coming and filling, I think, the left atrium here, sir.
Come on, there's a important point
No.
being missed. I will see the chart box. Chart box. Redmi Note 3. Can you open your microphone? Redmi Note 3. Redmi Note 3.
So there's a
Pawan, you
specific
close your
arch is
microphone.
there. First branch I can see, sir. After that, I cannot see the branching of the arch.
Okay.
So maybe there is associated coarctation which is there.
Come on, there is a limitation for discussing. You can see the negative washout. The blood is coming from the descending aorta, distal arch to the ascending aorta. So the left ventricle is not giving support to the systemic ventricle. Left ventricle is only filling one vessel here, carotid. The remaining duct is supplying the descending aorta as well as the transverse arch, and up to ascending aorta is coming. So that is the angiogram. So whatever I put today in that, it is a fetal critical PS with you can see that very significant raised LV EDP. Even post-balloon EDP is very high. The pulmonary artery pressures are suprasystemic because your femoral artery pressures are lesser than that. So that is the reason why the left ventricle cannot pump into the descending aorta here. Only PDA is supplying descending aorta as well as the transverse arch. So the left PAH is due to two reasons. One is the post-capillary hypertension because of the LV EDP is very high, which did not allow the neonatal PVR to fall down. Second is there is the ductus arteriosus. So this is a complex intracardiac hemodynamics in a critical aortic stenosis, in a fetal aortic stenosis, postnatal hemodynamics.
So,
okay.
Yes, sir.
That is the ductus arteriosus in this particular case. See the X-ray. X-ray is pulmonary edema is present.
Yes, sir.
So thank you very much. We'll come back again with a different case scenario tomorrow. I am stopping my screen here, and I am going to request my friend, colleague, Dr. Vinod.
Yes, sir. Can everybody see the slide?
Yes, sir.
So we stopped with this ECG. So we'll start with this one. So this is the clinically stable 1-year-old boy, structurally normal heart. Okay, and
Yes, sir.
heart rate. You can read the ECG.
So,
Like we were
Shall I
doing
go?
yesterday.
Shall I go ahead, sir?
No, yeah.
Okay, this is a clinically stable 1-year-old boy, structurally normal heart. And if we see here, sir, this is a wide complex tachycardia. It is regular. And
Then you want, what do you want to do next?
Rate is around 250 per minute. And if we see, sir, there is the axis. Yesterday we were discussing, sir. So axis is left axis. And in V1, there is broad QRS complexes suggestive of right bundle branch block pattern. In V1,
so right bundle branch block with left superior axis, and you have to tell me about the P wave. Is it like 1:1 conduction, or is it ventricular atrial dissociation, atrioventricular dissociation?
So P waves, they look dissociated, sir, because here we can see in two complexes, they're not seen in one. Then again in two.
So what do what is your basic diagnosis? It's white complex regular tachycardia with ventricular dissociation.
Association. Yes,
So
sir.
what is the diagnosis? Then you tell the morphology where it's coming from.
Yeah, so it is coming from it's a RBB with left superior axis, so it is coming from the left ventricle.
First, it's a ventricular tachycardia. Then
Yeah, it's a ventricle.
Then after that, it's a RBB with the left superior axis.
Axis. So it's coming from the left
Left ventricle. Left posterior fascicle. So it's a idiopathic left posterior fascicular VT, which is a little rare. So we discussed all this yesterday. This is a stable child, so you don't have to shock this boy. And many of these patients might have very infrequent tachycardias, like once in a few months. And if there's no tachycardiomyopathy, you don't even have to give medical treatment. Otherwise, they're very responsive to beta blockers, calcium channel blockers. So this patient was treated with verapamil, and you can see the QRS. You said it was a left axis, no? So here,
Yes.
this here. Left, that was a left superior axis. So this is looking like a normal axis.
Normal axis, yes, sir.
So the axis of the tachycardia and baseline is different. And the QRS duration is also different. That was wide complex, this is narrow complex. So that is also more in favor of ventricular tachycardia. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Another stable boy with structurally normal heart. Again, you can read.
So this is a 12-lead ECG with the normal standardization of limb leads and chest leads with a speed of 25 millimeter per second. The heart rate is around 250 per minute. Then it is a wide complex tachycardia, sir. And
always you tell irregular, the same.
Okay. It is a regular wide complex tachycardia. But in between, sir, if we see in lead 2, in between there are some in here there is a sinus. It looks like a sinus beat, sir. Here.
So what is that called?
Capture beat, sir.
Correct. It's a capture beat,
and these are different morphology complexes here also.
Yeah, so this is the capture beat, and then what about P waves? You can see in between, no?
Yes, sir. P waves are seen.
This is a VA dissociation. Okay. So have a wide complex regular tachycardia with VA dissociation. Okay, which you might even get in JET, but if you can get capture beats and fusion beats, then
yes, sir.
It's a pathognomic of ventricular tachycardia. Where it's coming from? What is the morphology?
So it is an LBB. V1 is LBB, and in V6 also it's positive. So it's LBB pattern. So it is coming from the right ventricle, sir.
Correct. And then axis?
Axis is around 0 to 30, sir.
So usually when you see axis of ventricle, you'll tell if it's a superior or inferior axis. For that, it's enough if you see 2, 3 and AVF. So if 2, 3 AVF, is it positive or negative?
Positive, sir.
So what axis is it? Inferior or superior?
Inferior.
Okay. So it is an LBB with the inferior axis. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Suppose it was a superior axis, then 2, 3 AVF will be negative.
Yes, sir.
So this is an LBB with the inferior axis. So
yes, sir.
What is the diagnosis? Or where?
RVOT, sir.
Right. So it's the RVOT tachycardia. Okay. So this is RVOT tachycardia. So this is also a benign tachycardia when seen in children or many adults. Many times it doesn't call tachycardiomyopathy. Again, it is well treatable with beta blocker or calcium channel blockers. But sometimes if it leads to tachycardiomyopathy and recurrences, then you might have to go for ablation. And very important for these tachycardias RVOT, you have to rule out which serious defect, which is the cause of sudden cardiac death. Adult cardiacs will know more because it's not common in children. So arrhythmogenic right ventricular
ARVD.
ARVD or ARVC as it's called has to be ruled out whenever you have a RVOT tachycardia. Okay, so now this is a 10-year-old girl being followed up for post-viral myocarditis.
Sir, I have one question. So, fusion beat and capture beat, why are we getting that morphology for fusion and what is the mechanism behind fusion and capture beat?
So what happens in does anybody else want to take this question or should I explain? Okay. So now sinus beat, so there's a VT going on. So a sinus beat happens when in the middle, somehow a normal impulse from the sinus node is able to travel through the normal conduction system and depolarize the ventricle. So that happens in the middle of the VT. So that's why you get a normal complex.
Okay.
It's a capture beat. So that's
Okay.
the normal sinus node is captured in the middle of the VT. That's what. So fusion beat is basically where the ventricle gets depolarized at the same time by a normal impulse coming from the sinus node and by the abnormal ventricular impulse. So fusion beat will have a morphology which is in between the sinus beat and the VT, PVC.
Okay.
So
Okay,
if you get sinus beat and capture beat, it's pathognomic of VT.
VT. Okay,
Yeah.
sir.
Okay, so this is a 10-year-old girl being followed up for a post-viral myocarditis dilated cardiomyopathy at another hospital. So being followed up for the past almost 4 to 5 years since 2016. So presented with a history of aborted sudden cardiac death at a local hospital. This happened last week. So otherwise the child has a good functional status. History of sudden cardiac death in an elder sibling at the age of 2.5 years. That child was a known history of multiple VSDs with pulmonary arterial hypertension, and that baby was diagnosed at birth, and surgery was postponed and had a sudden cardiac death at 2.5 years. We don't know the reason, and this patient is on anti-failure meds, otherwise having a good status. So what happened with this child is this child actually was woke up in the morning, had a fever spike, and suddenly had a syncope. So the patients were taking this child to the hospital and taxi and doing CPR at that time. So by the time the child reached the hospital, the child had already woken up. So they took her into the hospital. So this ECG was taken on arrival in the hospital when she was fully awake actually. So she was awake when she had this ECG. This was not the ECG taken at the time of the syncope, just to let you know. So would you like to read this ECG?
So this is a 12-lead ECG with normal standardization of limb leads and chest leads.
Okay.
The heart rate is around
Okay, I'll tell you. It's around.
maybe somewhere around 150.
Yeah. Okay. Little more.
150.
170.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Then.
150. And then there are white QRS complexes which can be seen, sir. Apart from that, sir, if we see, there is ST segment depression which is seen here.
Where?
Like, sir, in lead V1 also it is dipping down here also.
It's very difficult, no, commenting when having a white complex tachycardia, having ST depression elevation will be there, no, because the T wave will be opposite.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
So basically, I want to know if this is a white complex regular or irregular tachycardia. You have to read the ECG in the same way.
Okay, it's a white complex regular tachycardia, sir.
Regular tachycardia. Okay, so we got that. Now you want to see the P waves. Okay, it's a ventricular atrial dissociation. So in the middle, you're seeing over here, P wave over here, and then
Yes, sir.
don't see in the middle. So it's a ventricular atrial dissociation.
Dissociation.
We think maybe it is the ventricular tachycardia.
Tachycardia.
So now you want to know the morphology like you did last time.
Yes, sir.
So tell what is the morphology?
So morphology is RBB pattern. So B1, B2, B3
Correct.
it is positive.
RBB pattern. And then the axis. 2, 3
axis
AVF.
is for inferior axis because it is positive in 2, 3 and AVF.
2, 3 AVF positive. Okay, so it's a RBB with inferior axis. So it's coming from the left ventricle, maybe from the LVOT. Okay.
LVOT.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So that's the morphology of the ventricular tachycardia. So RBB
Yes.
inferior axis, as you said. So further,
Yes,
showed a severe biventricular dysfunction, dilated aneurysmal right ventricular outflow tract. And this patient was on amiodarone infusion from that hospital, and we converted to oral, and the patient had no recurrences after that. Okay, so this was the sinus rhythm ECG. Do you want to tell me what are the findings in this ECG? So there are many findings in this ECG actually.
So there is I'll start. So it's a 12-lead ECG with normal standardization of limb leads and chest leads. The rate is around maybe around 650.
Okay.
Somewhere,
Around
60 or 70. So rate
Okay.
is around 70. Then P waves. I can see P waves, sir.
Okay.
But there is decreased amplitude of QRS complexes.
Correct. So low voltage QRS complex.
Low voltage QRS complexes.
Right.
Then if we see here, the QRS complex is it's wide. Even
Right.
baseline, the QRS complexes are
Correct.
wide.
So wide QRS complex. And then
Yeah.
what is this thing? What is this you see?
This is a notching.
Yeah, what is it called? What is the proper?
Um,
It's called a fragmented QRS complex. Okay.
okay, fragmented QRS.
QRS. So
Okay.
these are called fragmented QRS complexes. Okay.
Okay.
Then there's
Yes,
a
sir.
prolonged PR interval.
Yeah, prolonged PR interval is there.
Then what about T waves? You want to comment?
Are they inverted, sir? Here.
Yeah, inverted T
In
waves almost up to V5, which is up.
V5. Yeah.
V6 also might be inverted. We don't know. Looks maybe inverted. And then what about here? You've not noticed what is happening here.
Yeah. These are ventricular ectopics are there, sir.
So what is the morphology of this?
It is positive in lead 1,
Okay.
negative in lead 2 and 3.
Okay.
So
So we know it is a at least still inferior superior axis.
superior axis.
Okay. What was the VT about during the VT? What was the axis?
Inferior axis.
Okay. So this is a different morphology PVC. Okay.
Yes, sir.
And one being positive, most likely it's coming from the right side.
Yeah.
Okay. That one was coming from the left side.
Left side.
So we have two different morphologies of PVC or ventricular tachya, whatever you say. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Then,
Yes, sir.
anything else you want to see in this? I've zoomed it up so you can see properly.
So QTC.
QTC is okay. I'm just
QTC is okay.
around
Yep.
450. So
Yeah.
can you see what is this? You have a small positive wave at the end of the QRS at the beginning of ST segment. So what is this wave called?
Is it the epsilon wave, sir?
Correct. So this is the epsilon wave. Okay.
Okay. Yes,
So
sir.
due to delayed depolarization. Okay. The epsilon wave. So now you have epsilon waves with the inverted T waves up to V5, V6, and then multiple morphologies of VPC, wide QRS complex. Okay. Any diagnosis in the setting of biventricular dysfunction?
Sir, ARVD?
Yeah. So we are suspecting ARVD in this patient. So what is Fontan leads? So basically, suppose if you cannot see the epsilon leads properly, you can replace the leads as Fontan leads. So the right arm lead will come to the manubrium sternum, the left arm lead will come to the xiphoid process, and the left leg will come to the V4, where you normally keep V4. So these cause F1, F2, and F3 leads. So this F1 lead, basically ARVD causes epsilon leads anywhere from the RV base to the RV OT. So this F1 will bring out the epsilon waves. This is basically along the RV base to RV OT, no? So this F1 lead will be able to get the epsilon leads better, and if you still suspect ARVD when there's no epsilon waves on the baseline. So we did Holter monitoring for this patient. It showed a high PVC burden, more than 524 hours, and there were two types of VPCs that we saw, just like we discussed earlier: an RBB pattern with the inferior axis, okay, and then LBB pattern with the superior axis. So the LBB pattern with the superior axis was the VT, which we saw. Sorry, the RBB pattern was inferior was the VTD, which we saw, and the LBB pattern with the superior axis is what
is a VPC.
ECG. Okay, so two different pattern of abnormal ventricular depression. Then there was no episode of sustained or non-sustained VT during the Holter monitoring, and we are pending a cardiac MRI. So we have some of the criteria for ARVD. So that was our going out diagnosis. We have to confirm with cardiac MRI. So this is an arrhythmogenic RV dysplasia or cardiomyopathy, burnt out phase, because this biventricular dysfunction. So what is ARVD? It's basically there are certain structures called desmosomes which help in the cell-to-cell interaction. So like plakoglobin, plakophilin. So when there's mutation in that, the cell-to-cell interaction cannot happen. So it leads to muscle cell death and fibrosis. So the replacement of the myocardial layer by fat and fibrosis. One of the causes of sudden cardiac death in third and fourth decades in females is more in females and rare in children. Okay, so it usually has 4 phases. So first is the concealed phase, where basically ECG and everything, MRI, echo will all be normal, but still they have chances of sudden cardiac death. The next is the electrophysiological phase, where they have chances of this recurrent VTs and abnormal structural anomalies slowly come up in the MRI and echo. And then you have the right ventricular phase where you have RV dysfunction, and the biventricular phase where you have biventricular dysfunction. So it's possible this patient was an ARVD from the beginning and now is in the biventricular phase. Sometimes ARVDs, are actually involve only the left ventricle. 10 to 20% involve only the left ventricle, not the right. So that's called arrhythmogenic left ventricular dysplasia. So the typical arrhythmia you get in the ARVD is the LBB pattern with the with the superior axis more common, and next most common is inferior axis. So ours was the RBB pattern because in this patient the left ventricle is also involved, but we did get BPCs having the LVB pattern with the superior axis. So they can also have heart failure or thromboembolism. And just I forgot to tell you, this patient was diagnosed with a thrombus in the LA appendage in 2016, and she was on anticoagulants for 6 months in 2016.
Okay.
And they used the modified task force criteria for diagnosis in 2010. So that was involves many criteria like echo, MRI, ECG. In ECG, you have inverted T waves up to more than V3. You have the LVB type of pattern of echo. You have epsilon wave. So multiple criteria there. And but problem is these criteria for patients more than 14 years of age. There's no actually pediatric criteria. So treatment this patient will be do the MRI, then do genetic testing, and he will need an ICD because she one episode of aborted cardiac death, and then in future she will definitely need cardiac transplant. Okay. So I just want to bring home the point is this patient was discharged yesterday only. So I just included. I want to bring the point that all dilated cardiomyopathies are not post-viral myocarditis or idiopathic, which usually we make this mistake because this patient was in 2016 itself. She has been following up. Okay, so ventricular tachycardia is the incidence of sustained VT is 1 per 1 lakh. So what is the difference between sustained and non-sustained VT? Definition wise?
Sir, it
Less
is,
than 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Correct. Non-sustained
Less
VT.
than 30.
Correct. So sustained VT is more than 30 seconds, or any VT which is associated with hemodynamic compromise is also a sustained VT. So even if you have a VT of 10 seconds and it has hemodynamic compromise, that is also a sustained VT. Okay. So etiology, you have to rule out all these congenital heart disease, myocarditis, channelopathies, electrolyte problems, cardiomyopathies, tumors, and then there's also idiopathic VT. So incessant VT can lead to tachycardiomyopathy, which is difficult to treat. Then Bell-Horson's, which is the idiopathic left fascicular VT, and RVOT VT, they generally respond well to calcium channel blockers and beta blockers, and they have a good prognosis. And toxicity pointers is a polymorphic ventricular tachycardia, which we saw an example with QRS axis twisting around the baseline, seen in long QT syndrome, and can lead to sudden cardiac death. And you usually use magnesium. So if VT is sustained or leading to ventricular dysfunction, you give medical therapy, or if the patient presents in shock, you have to give a cardioversion or defibrillation. And if the patient is age greater than 5 years, you can go for catheter ablation in certain VTs. And if there's an aborted cardiac arrest or an high-risk VTs like our patient, you can go for an ICD. And infant VTs in structurally normal heart usually have a high chance of spontaneous resolution. Okay. So this is an 11-month-old female child underwent a ICR for tetralogy of Fallot and became unstable post-op. So this is the ECG of 215 per minute. So can you read this ECG now?
Shall I go ahead, sir?
Yeah.
So this is a 12-lead ECG, sir, with normal standardization of limb leads and chest leads, with a heart rate of around 215 per minute.
Okay.
It is a
So basically, this is the QRS and this is the T wave.
So it is.
This is the positive T wave. So what is the morphology?
So it's an.
So it's a white complex.
White complex. No, it's a white complex tachycardia, sir.
Regular or irregular? Regular.
It is regular. After 3 beats, there is one pause, and then three morphology look together. So it's regularly.
So basically, what has happened? We are very lucky in this ECG. We have a sinus rhythm over here, which is going into the tachycardia. See here, P wave followed by QRS, P wave followed by QRS, P wave followed by QRS, P wave followed by. Then here it becomes a tachycardia. So we have got the transition somehow. So this is a sinus. It is a sinus tachycardia going into the white complex irregular tachycardia. Okay.
Irregular tachycardia.
Okay. So now what is the morphology and the axis of this patient?
So the morphology is RBB type.
Correct.
And the axis is inferior axis.
Okay, inferior axis. And I just want to know, want you to pay attention to this also. Just in lead 1, it's a small complex lead, but it's equiphasic. Okay, so lead 1 is equiphasic and AVF is negative.
Negative.
Okay, so it is a minus 90 degree.
Minus 90, yes.
Okay, just I want you to keep that in mind. So this is a white complex irregular tachycardia, and then now this is I'm showing the sinus rhythm which goes into the tachycardia, and this is having a VA dissociation. So it's a white complex irregular tachycardia with VA dissociation. So this could be a jet or a VT. Okay, so we'll just keep that in mind because even jets can also have VA dissociation. So treatment for jet was done because it's a
Sir,
post-op
that
patient.
axis is during sinus rhythm, sir. Axis
one?
is during VT, sir.
Which one?
The axis you have shown was during sinus rhythm or during VT, sir?
That's a good point. Actually, this is during sinus rhythm actually. So it's difficult to comment, but we'll go ahead. So treatment, we thought this jet is actually more common. So jet is more common in this post-op patient. So we did all the treatment for jet which we discussed, and atrial pacing was done. And after 24 to 48 hours, a repeat ECG was done. So now this ECG is in sinus rhythm. Okay. So now we see that we have the same wide QRS complex, the same RBB pattern, and the same axis. Okay. This
Yes, sir.
equiphasic in one and negative in AVF. So this confirms our diagnosis of jet. So what is the difference between jet and VT? The main differences.
So
Basic rhythm remains same, sir, during tachycardia also.
Yeah, in VT you're telling, no? In VT, sorry, in jet you're telling.
Jet, sir.
Correct. So both of them can have VA dissociation. Okay, and fusion and capture beats will be present in VT, but the baseline QRS axis and tachycardia QRS axis are the same in jet, but in VT it will be different. Okay, so if suppose that patient had it was a VT, then the baseline will be having a narrow QRS and the VT will having a wide. So this patient had a wide QRS both in the baseline and then also in the tachycardia ECG. Of course, now the axis becomes a little difficult to suggest because that as a friend pointed out, the QRS axis was probably the baseline QRS axis. But taking the clinical scenario into account, post-op jet was more likely. Okay. So now case scenario 12, a 5-year-old child with congenital heart disease underwent procedure in cath lab. Procedure abandoned due to rhythm abnormality. So can you read the ECG, somebody?
So this is a 12-lead ECG with
Okay.
normal standardization of limb leads and chest leads.
Okay.
Then the ventricular rate is around 60 to 70 per minute,
Okay.
and the P waves are there are multiple P waves, sir, and all the P waves are not followed by the QRS. So there is
So what is the atrial rate?
atrial rate is around atrial rate is around, I think, 100 per minute, sir, somewhere
125 per minute. Okay.
125, and ventricular rate is around 70 per minute.
Okay.
So there is AV dissociation,
Correct. So what is the diagnosis?
complete heart block, sir.
Right. So in a complete heart block, you'll have an atrial rate more than the ventricular rate with AV dissociation, and atrial rate will be regular. Okay. So anybody know what procedure was done seeing the other findings of the ECG? What is the diagnosis of the heart defect from the ECG?
ASTC.
Correct. So you have a right axis deviation and you have RS pattern in V1. So while doing AST device closure, while putting the sheath across, it hit the AV node and you had complete heart block. So we had to abandon the procedure. Okay. So actually I put a video here but wasn't playing, so I removed it. So what is the JVB finding you will expect in this type of condition? Complete
So Canon A waves.
Canon. It's called Canon waves. You don't tell Canon A waves. Canon waves and
Canon waves.
irregular Canon waves. Okay.
Irregular Canon
You
waves.
can have irregular Canon waves or regular Canon waves. Can you tell me some conditions with irregular and conditions with regular Canon waves?
So regular Canon waves are seen in junctional rhythm, then in ventricular tachycardia with retrograde 1:1 conduction, and ventricular.
Pacing.
So not all tachycardia. Junctional tachycardia with retrograde 1:1 conduction only will have regular Canon waves. If it's just the common junctional ectopic tachycardia, you will have irregular Canon waves.
Isorhythmic AV dissociation will have regular.
Yeah, we'll have irregular Canon waves. Then PVCs, you will have irregular Canon waves, but ventricular bigeminy, you will have regular Canon waves. Okay.
RV pacing.
RV pacing. Okay. RV pacing will be irregular Canon waves, no? Irregular. So then CHB, what is the etiology of CHB, you know?
So there, it can be
Congenital.
either associated with the heart disease or not associated with the structural heart disease.
Okay. So not associated with structural heart disease. What are the causes?
It can be because of so like in this case, if you are attempting a procedure
Okay.
and
So
at that time if there
post procedure, any surgery or device in catheterization.
any injury to the AV node,
Correct. Then other etiologies.
then in cases of autoimmune disorders, when the mother is associated with ROLA antibodies, then in the case the
Correct.
fetus will have chances of complete
Correct.
heart
Any
disease.
other causes? Any infections? Unusual child? Diphtheria. So diphtheria can also cause CHP.
Myocarditis.
Okay,
Yes.
diphtheria mycosis can cause CHP. So what are the structural cardiac diseases which can cause complete heart block?
Sir, CCTGA, AV canal defect,
Then
then Epstein's anomaly.
Epstein's anomaly doesn't cause heart block.
Not, yeah.
So familial ASD. So there's some gene defects like NKX2 and TBX5. Familial ASD, they can be associated with heart block. And then left isomerism,
Left isomerism, yes.
cardiac diseases. Okay.
Yes.
And then what is the incidence of CCTGA heart block per year?
So it's 2% in the general population per year.
Okay. General population of CCTGA, you mean?
Of CCTGA, yes, sir.
Okay. So mother with connective tissue disorder. So if a mother is having Rho and La antibodies, what incidence of heart block will be for the first child? What will you tell her for counseling purpose? Mother is having Rho and La and she's going to have first baby. What is the incidence of HP in that baby? You will need to tell them, no?
19,
Huh?
around 19 to 20%, 19%.
High.
First baby, yeah? So
Uh,
1 to 3%. Suppose she has an affected baby, then next baby will be around what is it? Around 16 to 19%.
19%.
So all this you need when you're counseling. Okay. So post surgical VSD's device, ASD device closure or surgical post tetralogy fallow repair VSD surgical closure can all lead to CHP. Okay. So where does the AV bundle go in the case of a perimembranous VSD with the AVVA concordance, and where does it go with the perimembranous VSD with AVVA discordance? How does the AV bundle go?
And
So in case of perimembranous VSD, the AV bundle goes posto-inferior to the
Yes, sir.
correct? It is an AVVA concordance. If it's AVVA discordance, it goes antro-superior to the defect. Okay. So what are the indications for pacemaker in children?
So there are so class 1 indications are there. So
Okay.
class 1 indication is if there is if it is a newborn, in the absence of congenital heart disease, if the heart rate is less than 55, then that is an indication. In the presence of a congenital heart disease, if the heart rate is less than 70,
Okay.
then that is an indication. Then
Presence of LV dysfunction, sir.
Correct. LV dysfunction or symptomatic Stokes-Adams
Symptomatic.
okay, all that low cardiac output. Then if any congenital CABD is wide QRS escape rhythm, which means below the his bundle, complex ventricular ectopy, ventricular dysfunction, long QT syndrome, ventricular pauses. Then as you said, CHB in infant less than 55, elder child less than 50, and congenital heart disease less than 70. Then post-operative advanced CHB, so which lasts more than 7 to 10 days, whatever the heart rate is. Okay, because they'll be unstable. Then sinus node dysfunction with symptoms. Okay, don't forget always any patient with CHP you have to do a Holter monitoring. Okay, because you'll all this ventricular ectopy, ventricular pauses you can find it only by Holter monitoring. So he might be a stable patient, but if you get prolonged ventricular pause more than 3 cycle lengths or more than 3 to 4 seconds, then he needs a pacemaker. So now coming to rare textbook ECGs, which I've never seen before. Actually, only in textbooks I've seen. So anybody wants to read this ECG?
So this is a 12 lead ECG, sir, with I can't see
250, 300 per minute. Okay.
250, 300 per minute, wide complex regular tachycardia, sir.
Correct.
And now we'll try to look at the P waves, sir.
Yeah.
I think
So basically, actually, P waves are not well seen over here. Okay, but you have an LBB type of pattern, means
yeah.
coming from the right side. But
Mm.
some amount of slurring is there in V5. This is all slurring. So this is basically a, you heard of orthodromic atrioventricular retachycardia. This is antidromic atrioventricular re-entry tachycardia. So all the WPW symptoms less than 10% will be antidromic AV re-entrant tachycardia. So this is a right-sided pathway because of an LBBB. Okay. So if you terminate this patient with adenosine, you will get a pre-excited, that is, you'll get the WPW syndrome ECG on the baseline ECG. Okay. So basically, an orthodromic tachycardia is where it goes down this AV nodal pathway and up the fast accessory pathway. Okay, this is what happens in the normal orthodromic circular tachycardia. Then the antidromic tachycardia is where it goes down the fast pathway and up the AV nodal pathway. So because it is going down the abnormal pathway and depolarizing the ventricle will have a wide QRS complex and be pre-excited. Okay, so that is a one thing. Then this is the next ECG. Okay, anybody wants to read this ECG? This is also from textbook only. I've not seen before.
Pre-excited AF.
Very good. This is pre-excited also. So what is the diagnosis? So this is pre-excited AF. Oh, did you say pre-excited AF? Huh? Is that what you said? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, correct. So this is pre-excited AF. Very good. So you basically in pre-excited AF you will get a wide complex irregular tachycardia. So most of the VTs that we know have a regular wide complex tachycardia. If you have seen the examples. So if you have a wide complex irregular tachycardia, you must think of a pre-excited AF. So what is a pre-excited AF? It basically means in a patient who has a WPW syndrome, you have the AV node and you have the bypass tract. Okay, so if the patient develops atrial fibrillation, so these multiple atrial complexes will conduct down the fast pathway or accessory pathway, which is a shorter refractive period, and depolarize the ventricle. So because they are conducting down the abnormal tract, you will have a wide QRS complex, and we know that the atrial fibrillation is, the atrial pulses will be irregular, so you will have an irregular wide complex tachycardia. So how do you differentiate from a normal atrial fibrillation without the bypass tract? In that one, you will have a irregular QRS complex, but they'll be narrow because they go down the normal AV nodal pathway. Okay, so that's the difference between atrial fibrillation without a bypass tract and without a bypass tract. So differentiation from a ventricular tachycardia will sometimes be difficult. As I said, VT most likely is regular and you have the fusion and capture beats. But both of these cases, VT and this, will most likely require a cardioversion or a defibrillation. And on sinus rhythm, this pre-excited AF will be showing a WPW syndrome and the VT will show a normal sinus rhythm. Okay. So this is another patient, infant.
Sir, among the broad complexes also there is different morphology was there, no, sir? Among the broad complexes also there is different morphology was there.
I think that's due to the pre-excitation only we are seeing that. I don't think the morphology is different. Because of the AF, no? The AF is like very irregular, no? That's why the tachycardia is irregular. I don't think the complexes are different actually. You just see like very fast, you see beats and then the beats become little slow. I don't think the complexes are different actually, in my opinion. Okay, so this is an infant who is having a tachycardiomyopathy. Okay, and this is the ECG. So what is the, can somebody read this ECG? So this is a heart rate of around how much?
So heart rate of around 180,
Okay, 180, 200 per minute. And
200 per minute.
complex?
It is a narrow complex regular tachycardia, sir.
Okay, so see where the P waves are.
The P waves are negative in 2, 3 and AVF, sir.
Yeah, so what is the diagnosis? And it is a short RP or long RP?
It is a long RP tachycardia, sir.
What is the diagnosis?
PGRT.
PGRT. Okay. So what happens in PGRT? So you have it is an orthodromic reentrant tachycardia, and the reentrant pathway goes near the mouth of the coronary sinus, and this is also a very slow conducting pathway. If you see the retrograde pathway in WPW syndrome, they are fast conducting pathways, but here this is also a slow conducting pathway. So because this is a slow conducting pathway, we have a long RP tachycardia, and because it's slow conducting, this tachycardia can start very easily and be very insistent. It's very difficult to treat. Many times you can achieve only rate control and not rhythm control with your drugs. and the patient might require a radio frequency ablation when they grow up. Okay, so this is a PGRT. It is an uncommon arrhythmia, but when it's present, it is present in infants, even fetal life, or in pediatric group. It's very rare in adults. So what about this ECG? Again,
So
you leave the rate because this is from textbook. There's no ECG lines. You can just tell it's a tachycardia. You tell the white complex and this thing and all.
so it is a narrow complex regular tachycardia, sir.
Regular tachycardia. What about P waves?
P waves
So I don't think we can see P waves.
not very clearly seen, sir.
Not very clear. But actually, if you see now the
Here, in V1, sir, I think we can see some.
where this
The V1 here, sir, these slight.
okay. So if P wave is within 80 milliseconds of the QRS, we call it a AV-NRT. So this is basically the pseudo R dash pattern. Okay. So when the P wave is actually buried in the QRS or comes just after the QRS, it causes pseudo R dash pattern in V1, or in the inferior leads, it might cause a pseudo S pattern. Okay. So this is a typical AV-NRT, slow fast pathway. So this is when in the case of this typical AV-NRT, this pseudo R dash pattern will be present in the tachycardia, but when you convert it to sinus rhythm, there is no, that extra wave is not there. Okay, so that's how you differentiate. So because it's a nodal dependent pathway, you will give adenosine only. So basically what happens is in the AV node, you have the AV node. So it goes down the slow pathway, depolarizes the ventricle, and goes up the fast pathway and depolarizes the atria. So the P wave is within 80 milliseconds of the QRS complex or buried inside. So apart from this, this is typical AV-NRT. You also have atypical AV-NRT, which is even more rare. In atypical AV-NRT, it will be fast slow pathway. So it will go down the fast pathway, depolarize the ventricle. Because it goes up the slow pathway and depolarize the atria, you will have a long RP tachycardia. So this fast slow pathway or atypical AV-NRT is one of the causes of the long RP. Okay. So this is another textbook. 8-year-old child had syncope during exercise. Anybody wants to read the ECG?
Catecholamic polymorphic ventricular tachycardia.
Correct. CPVT. So why did you say that?
Bidirectional ventricular
Bidirectional
tachycardia.
VT. So you have a tachycardia and you have a bidirectional VT, which means see this is positive, this is negative, this is positive, this is negative. So if you see, there will be usually the ECGs will have an RBP type pattern. They'll come from the left ventricle and will be alternative right and left axis. So that's why you have AVF positive, negative, positive, negative. So this is a cause of sudden cardiac death in the pediatric age group. Commonest cause after the long QT syndrome. So this is typical of CPVT. So these patients need beta blockers, and possibly if does not respond to beta blockers, they will need ICD. So coming to fetal arrhythmias. So this is a fetal arrhythmia which we have taken M mode crossing the atrium and the ventricle. So heart rate is 270 per minute. So what is the diagnosis of this?
So atrial tachycardia.
So you have a
No.
tachycardia, and A is followed by a V, A is followed by a V. Okay.
So sign.
It is regular.
Is it a sinus tachycardia, sir?
Okay, so what is sinus tachycardia? Usually after up to 180 beats per minute. No, very rare you'll have a sinus tachy of 270 per minute. So this is basically an SVT with a short VA interval or short RB tachycardia. So SVT can be two types: a long VA interval or a short VA interval. So this is the SVT of short VA interval, which is more common. So what are the drugs you can use? Commonly used for fetal arrhythmia?
So digoxin, sotalol,
Okay, and what else can you use? Flecainide. Flecainide, correct. So digoxin in many institutions is used as a first line drug, but the problem is digoxin, suppose if the patient does not revert and becomes hydrops, in the presence of hydrops, digoxin's crossing over through the placenta is very less. So usually when the patient develops hydrops, or in many institutions now first line itself, they use flecainide and sotalol even before digoxin, and many papers are coming to that flecainide is better in SVT and sotalol is better in atrial flutter. So what is this rhythm now? So this is atria and this is ventricle.
So there is AV dissociation is there, sir.
Correct. So what is the
Complete heart block.
So you have a regular atrial rate, regular ventricular
rate,
60 per minute. Okay. So this is the CHV. What is this one? So this is the ventricle and this is the atria, and I marked the atrial base for you because it's not very clear. So here again ventricular is 60 per minute. So what is the diagnosis?
Atrial bigeminy, sir, with 2:1 block.
Correct. So the main reason why I told this is because this is also very commonly diagnosed by many people as complete heart block. But complete heart block will have a poor prognosis. This has a good prognosis. So what is the mechanism happening here? Why you are having a slow ventricular rate?
So because only one, not all are being conducted, sir.
Okay. So you have an atrial beat followed by a ventricular beat. The next atrial beat comes too close after the ventricle, so ventricle is in refractory period, so it cannot conduct. So then you get a pause, and then you get the next atrial beat, and followed by the ventricle. Okay. So this is a atrial bigeminy with alternately non-conducted beats. So this has a good prognosis. It requires only follow-up. No treatment needs to be done. But the CHP has a poor prognosis. It's very important to differentiate the two. And this one, I've given you the atrial rate 462 per minute, ventricular
Atrial flutter, sir.
correct. Atrial flutter with 2:1 block. So this patient is Sotalol or flecainide. So for classification of tachyarrhythmias, you divide it into normal QRS or wide QRS. Okay, if it's normal QRS, you will have to say if it's a regular tachycardia or an irregular tachycardia. If it's regular tachycardia, into 1:1 conduction, AV block, that is atrial more than ventricular waves, or VA block, that is ventricular atrial dissociation, VA more than A. So if it's 1:1, then what are the examples we saw? The short RP and long RP both come in 1:1. So it's the AVNRT, AVRT, PGRT, and AT. So if it is regular with AV block, what are the examples?
Atria is greater than ventricle, sir. Then atrial flutter, sir.
Atrial flutter or atrial tachycardia.
Tachycardia.
With either 2:1 or 3:1 block, so that the beat is the rhythm is regular. And VA block, which
Sir,
is
ventricular tachycardia, sir.
but ventricular will have wide QRS complex, whereas normal QRS.
Normal
It will
complex.
be jet with retrograde 1:1 conduction because it's regular. This is coming. But if it's irregular, what are the examples? These same three ones. So atrial
fibrillation, sir.
Atrial fibrillation as well. I didn't put it because it's very rare in pediatric age group. So atrial tachycardia and atrial flutter with variable AV block and jet. Commonest cause jet will have an irregular heart rate only. So when it comes to wide QRS, you always have to suspect VT unless proven otherwise. But any tachycardia which comes from the SVT, that is above the AV node, if there's any pre-existing bundle branch block or rate-related aberrancy, you can also have a wide QRS. So you have a regular and irregular. When it's regular, you always see the morphology. So LBB, RBB, or neither. So it's left bundle branch block. Okay, we saw RVOT, VT, but even an SVT with a left bundle branch block, you can also have the same pattern. And then antidromic atrioventricular reentrant tachycardia, which we saw an example. So if it's a right-sided pathway, you'll have a LBB pattern. And then atriofascicular reentrant tachycardia is a rare type of tachycardia, which is called Mahim's type cardia. So that is the LBB type. So RBB again will be the same thing. So RB type was the left fascicular VT or SVT with RBB pattern, or the antidromic atrioventricular tachycardia with the left-sided pathway. And if it is neither RB or LBB, it could be a VT or a atrial tachycardia with aberrancy. So if it is irregular, as I said, most of the VTs are regular. So if it is irregular, most time it will be a supraventricular tachycardia with a bundle branch block, which includes flutter with bundle branch block, atrial fibrillation with bundle branch block, and pre-excited atrial flutter. And very rarely some VTs can be irregular. Okay, so this is the classification. This is how basically what we have been doing over the past 1 hour and yesterday, trying to classify if it is 1:1 conduction, if it's short RP, long RP, if it is normal or wide QRS, if it's regular, if it's wide QRS, LBB or RB. This is only what we have been doing. So I hope by following this table, you'll be able to diagnose most of the tachycardias. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Vinod. I think it is really very great. In between, I was not there because of some emergency work in the ER. I appreciate you. If there is a need from the student's point of view, we may call you back again in the next few weeks' time.
Okay.
So you put lot of efforts to collect the ECGs and organizing the ECGs, discussion with them. So any questions from the students? Are there questions? If you have questions, you can put in WhatsApp group. Dr. Vinod also there. He would like to answer all of yours. Tomorrow there won't be EP class. EP classes are rescheduled after 2 weeks. I will let you know what we are going to talk tomorrow. Thank you very much. If there is nothing, can we end the session, Vinod?
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. I think it's a really marathon 2
Thank
hour
you, sir.
session. Okay, bye.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.